I know, it makes you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into our RIM Logistics podcast room. It's another edition of Logistically Speaking. I'm Mike Esposito from our Director of Global Sales, or I am our Director of Global Sales here at RIM. Welcome in. We're going to talk a little domestic transportation today. We've talked a ton about tariffs. We've talked a ton about all of the various things going into international the last year, but we want to highlight an important ruling by the Supreme Court about liability and using truck brokers, and we also want to highlight all the different things that you as a mover of freight can look for, and that how we protect our customers here at RIM and things you can do for yourself. So I want to introduce you to our guest today. Ronni Valenz is our Director of North America Transportation here at RIM. She's involved in all things domestic freight.
Correct.
Kristy Alvarez is our Manager of Domestic Services. She works here in our Chicago branch, but does all domestic transportation for all of our different branches. So our product experts, they're certainly going to help me, who is certainly not a product expert, but that's why I rely and lean on Kristy and Ronni here. So I'm just going to read this ruling because, again, this is a ruling against C.H. Robinson by somebody who sued them because they had cross-brokered something out. We'll explain all that in a second, but the ruling is basically this. The forwarder, in this case C.H. Robinson, had brokered a load. The trucker was a third-party trucker. The person who was injured in this sued C.H. Robinson, saying you brokered out this load. And basically, they're ruling that truck brokers can be held responsible even if they were not physically carrying it, because they did broker that load and they were thus therefore responsible for that. This is not something that happens infrequently. A lot of this brokering of loads happens every single day, and you're probably doing it even if you don't realize that you're doing it. But that's why, and I'll start with you, Ronni, when we are trying to protect not only ourselves but our clients, it starts with vetting carriers.
Correct. So we have a very, very stringent vetting process. Even before the ruling came down, like we were, I guess, more progressive than some of the other even larger forwarders, like a C.H. Robinson. Clearly their domestic spend and domestic volume is bigger than us, but I feel like we're on top of our game with that.
Mm-hmm.
We've invested in a lot of tools that help us quickly determine whether a carrier is safety, like on point, has a long enough authority. We have a lot of minimums in our system that automatically, like if you don't have a certain criteria, like you are not even a part of the vetting process, we just shut that down immediately. We do not probably we probably say no to probably over 20% of the carriers that we find on load boards or whatever, or just through assortment of avenues to find carriers. So we're very stringent. I'm sure from a sales standpoint, sometimes it makes the cost a little higher, but we're really trying to protect RIM and the clients to make sure that we always have a really solid carrier on that load. So.
Right. Well, and I know this because, and that's part of what this case is. In this particular case, the plaintiff was arguing successfully, as it turns out, that I booked this load with you, C.H. Robinson.
Right, and they didn't take enough due care.
Correct. So the carrier you hired, who was, question mark, and in a lot of cases, this is the part I want to drive home. A lot of people, you don't even know
Correct.
who's carrying it. Like,
Yes.
it could be trucking company XYZ, but you,
Yes.
the customer, booked it with C.H. Robinson. Well, you
Correct.
don't know who they're brokering it with.
Correct, absolutely. So RIM ourselves, we are non-asset, so we really have to make sure we do our due care with all the vetting of the carriers. Like I said, in the ruling, the justices came down, and I would have liked them to be a little more specific on what they considered reasonable care in
Right.
finding a carrier. Like, that would have been helpful, I think, to all the forwarders out there. They didn't, so we are going above and beyond to make sure we are covered under the reasonable care. So yeah, we do a really good job. The guys that work for me at RIM, they're really spot on, and they have a tough job to protect RIM.
Absolutely. No, and it's called, and I'm reading from the SCOTUS blog, which is the first time
Correct.
that I've certainly printed out the SCOTUS blog, but it's called negligent hiring. It's when you engage in a contract or with a contractor for work that poses a physical risk to others. You
Yes.
have the duty to exercise reasonable care in making that
Correct.
choice. And what they were saying specifically in this instance is that CH did not do that
Correct.
in brokering this
Yes.
load.
Ironically, if I may,
Yes, please.
the FMCSA, which is governed by the government, like, you can go on their website and it'll show like satisfactory, like safety, or like all this stuff. So I feel like if they're going to, I think their care of that website should probably change a little,
Sure.
because if that's one of the many tools we use, I mean, it kind of starts there. But there's carriers that show satisfactory on there for safety, or like just even operating authority, but we don't go through with the vetting because of other things we find along the way. So
Right.
I feel like they need to, if they're making this ruling and they're holding all of us responsible, I feel like they should be a little more stricter on that
Sure.
website.
That makes sense. And that leads us to, and again, for whether you're brokering your own truckloads or you're doing that through a company like RIM, and Kristy, I'll ask you, because I know I'm sales for RIM. I get solicited every single day a million times by truckers trying to
Yes.
hire us or trying to get us to onboard them. And I know you must get it times 10, but as you're looking to onboard carriers, like, how do you go about that? What would you consider? Because I know there's a lot of negligence, especially in the past, like procuring carriers. It was like, oh, Joe Schmo has 10 trucks, let's use them, without really putting a lot of thought into that. That obviously is a thing that does not exist anymore. Or it exists, but we don't do that.
Yeah, I think before it was a lot easier to kind of just vet carriers. We weren't looking at a whole bunch of things. I even know at my previous employment, we would really just kind of go through one site, see if they were okay. I didn't know a whole lot about them, and just kind of sent them the onboarding paperwork, contract, and then we would just kind of tender them the load, and kind of whatever happened. I mean, thankfully we didn't have too many issues, but I think it's definitely getting a lot more strict now. We are definitely looking at things. The procurement team is looking at one avenue. I also have something in my portal that I look at, so I can vet carriers as well. So just trying to take those extra steps and then work with them too, to make sure that they're also not, going to double broker our load, or, and I think things have changed now. We're kind of looking at what they're kind of attacking is, driver health and all kinds of different things. And what we're doing is we weren't really looking at that in the past. We were just kind of looking, are they have any reports against them for, fraud, theft, or any of that kind of stuff. But I think it's we're going to have to narrow down and kind of get a little more harder with what we're accepting as a carrier.
Well, and that's a great point too, because I think most of us don't think, like, if you tender a load to XYZ trucking company, at least I wouldn't think, well, gee, I wonder if they're going to broker this out to somebody else. But that is something that was happening, and still I'm sure does happen all the time. Where
super common.
Yep.
So how do we protect against something like that? Like, what steps can we take?
So,
how do we do that?
Yeah, I mean, we're running all the MC numbers in the, the different databases that we have to check. we're checking to make sure that they're not a broker. They also have assets, so they're not, double or even triple brokering freight out.
Right.
Working closely with our procurement team here at RIM just to make sure that everything looks good, trying to catch any kind of theft, fraud. A lot of Gmail email addresses come back and they are like not good carriers. If they have new authority, they might have just tried to get a new authority because they, didn't fit the driver fitness, or they had a lot of, accident reports or whatever on their, like on their previous MC number. So we're really just trying to double check and really work together. And we have found a lot of carriers that come back and they are negligent, and we've caught a lot of that stuff between the procurement team and myself. Before tendering that out, there's a lot of theft going on too. So we've prevented a lot of that internally as well.
It's very important, and feel free to add to that. But in terms of keeping your supply chain safe and really
it's super important. I mean, we also take in a big consideration the commodity we're shipping. There's like certain commodities are more theftable, if you will, than others. I mean, copper's a big one. Electronics and all that stuff. The theft game, if you will, is so heightened these days, and there's not a lot of like bringing the criminals, bad actors, to police, to actual jail time or anything.
Right.
And so there's really no repercussions for all of this like major like crime spree, if you will.
Yes.
But Kristy's team also does a really good job with. We've implemented a procedure where they put the actual name of the carrier on the bill of lading. So it doesn't say RIM Logistics, it says Joe's Trucking Company. A lot of times they'll also put the trailer number, so it's up, and we instruct the shipper to be like, hey, make sure that matches, because that's a good check and balance for like everything. So
Absolutely.
No, and I'm sure that's something, on our side as RIM, we certainly want, but on the customer side too, like, you don't want some third-rate carrier carrying your freight. You booked it with us. We're booking it with whatever. We're going to have full transparency. We're going to show you everything. And as you said, it may not always be the absolute cheapest way to move the freight, but it's going to be a lot more secure, and it's going to be a lot more above board. You're not going to have the problems that could result in this.
Absolutely. Yes. Correct.
So what other tools? You mentioned the database that the federal government has in terms of tools. Like, I know there are a bunch of different ways to vet truckers. Like, how do you, from a corporate standpoint, when you're looking at carriers, I mean, I know we have a base, but if I'm a new trucker and I have 100 trucks and I want to sell RIM and I want to carry your freight, how do I come about that? How do you go about that?
So we get solicited.
I'm sure you do, yes.
I can't even tell you. The front desk says I get more phone calls than everybody else put together. So do what you want with that statement. Popular. I'm unfortunately the popular one. We only deal with direct assets. That's first and foremost. And then we use tools. We have Carrier Assure, we have RMIS, we have Truck Stop with their security thing. We use the FMCSA website. The procurement team does a great job with like back checking and checking websites to make sure, this phone number is the same as this phone number. They'll call and be like, hey, so-and-so's hitting us up. And there's oftentimes they'll be like, that's not us, which is scary, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But the team does a great job. Kudos to Carlos and Jeremy, a little shout out.
There you go.
And I think it's also important that we control who does vet and has absolute authority to approve them. It's not anybody. It's basically 3 and Kristy. So there's like 4 of us in all of RIM that have authority to onboard a carrier. So I think that the more control. Because, in an operations, they might be getting pushed by the customer or the salesperson. Sure. No offense.
None taken. I can't imagine salespeople pushing you. I'm shocked.
Shocking. It never happens. It never happens with Mike, but maybe a couple others. But hey, you got to get this covered. You got to get this covered, and that's why the procurement team is like a separate entity. So they're not like their first and foremost goal is to protect RIM. Like that is that's our main objective. And yes, we have to find capacity and secure the truck, but we have to do it with the right carrier.
Right.
So I think controlling who does that is super important.
Right. And it's been very interesting. I mean, and some of this is more information, and I've worked in this for 20 plus years, that I've ever known. Like, in terms of trucking companies, it's as easy as, and they call them in this article that I have here, chameleon carriers, where
Bad actors.
bad actors, if you have a trucking company and you're cited for safety violations, you close that one and it's the exact same thing and you just rename it under a new name and under a new tax ID, whatever.
Yep.
You're the same carrier under a new
Correct.
name, but you don't have those safety violations. Well, apparently that was very common.
It still is. So we have a minimum authority. It's 180 days that you need, and we are very strict with that for that reason because, and then we'll check all the other things too, but like the minimum authority is like step one, basically. If you can't get past that, it doesn't matter really what your safety and security and all that other stuff is, because we need to make sure you're in business. Like you didn't just close shop, like you just said, and reopen as, Joe's Trucking Company.
Yep. No, and Kristy and I know we talked about this too. Like there used to be a lot of workarounds. There still are people trying to game the system, but from your perch and from where you and your team act on a daily basis, booking these loads, you're obviously protecting not only RIM but our clients from that type of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think going in this direction, the government is trying to shut down those types of carriers who are just getting new MCs when they are, bad actors, chameleon carriers. So they have launched some aggressive new, technology and stuff like that. They called it the MODIS system. Is what I was reading about, and basically they're cracking down on, so it's a lot of identity, so they have to, confirm their identity, which is something that we already do in the RMIS, make sure if their carriers are not willing to do that, we're shutting them down. Just also making sure that we're not getting double brokered. I check a lot with the procurement team to make sure that like the MC numbers that are being ran through my operators to myself, that they are not actual brokers and they do have actual assets, just to kind of prevent that. And then we kind of have a good understanding. I know when we kind of first started this about a year ago, we really just, we were really like checking, checks and balances off of one another. And I would call a carrier and I'd be like, okay, this sounds like kind of like just like a farm, like it's just a bunch of people at a service center answering the phones. And we would just go back and forth, between the procurement team and I, and really just making sure. And then they would go back and they would find something like a shared email address, or maybe there was like one alphabetical, letter off of like the email address, and just trying to pose as other carriers. So we really tried to prevent that by just all working together.
Yeah, it's insane as you dive down this rabbit hole, which you don't want to do, trust me. We do it for you.
Yes.
But there are a lot of ways to protect yourselves. We are doing them on your behalf. And I know, actually, that's what I'd like to close on before we wrap up is the different investments we've made at RIM and the different tools we offer our clients to try to protect from a lot of this, and in terms of not only truckload, but LTL as well with our TMS.
Yeah, so we have a TMS. We use Bang & Technologies, if I may say.
Absolutely.
They're a good partner of ours. They've been a partner of ours we use them as our API connection even before we joined on their TMS product. So yeah, we have QBRs with carriers. XPO was in here yesterday. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that.
It's okay.
But yeah, I mean, we're very involved with the carrier relations too, because it doesn't just stop with the vetting. It continues with like building relationships with those carriers, because they are an extension of RIM.
Right.
We don't own assets, so we need to have very good, strong relationships with all of our vendors.
Yep.
And carriers are certainly a very important piece to our full supply chain.
And I know from a daily operational standpoint, Kristy, that we are taking, because as Ronni said, and that's really it, when you're working with RIM, whoever we hire to carry something is representing RIM, and therefore representing you, the customer who's booking that with us. So we take many steps, very thorough steps, to avoid any kind of stuff like what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Extra precautions, definitely. Always checking something out. If something doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. So let's go and do like a double check. We have different, like she was saying, platforms that we use, Carrier, Sure, RMIS. We're just going through all those. And we're always constantly talking to one another too. And hey, maybe this will work better, or maybe this is a better tool, and just kind of feeling it out to see what's being offered out there too. Because you have plenty of different, Carrier 411, you've got RMIS, you've got carrier, sure, you have a lot of different platforms and they kind of offer all something different. You just got to see what's the best fit to try to get the most out of,
Yes.
vetting
I mean,
processes.
the industry is evolving from a
Definitely.
technology standpoint, especially even the government's getting involved now with them becoming more stringent and, putting things in place like Kristy said. So, theft is at all-time high right now. So, like, we have to do our due diligence to protect REM and obviously to protect our customers
Yep.
because we are an extension of the customers.
100%. And that's really where we try to make sure that we are doing everything we can, because for our customers, we want to make sure that we are protecting you and that we're
Yes.
giving you the service that you're paying us for. So if you have, in closing, any questions, anything on the trucking side, domestic transportation, truckload, LTL,
Yeah.
TMS, anything like that, let us know. You can run it through me, any of Ronni or Kristy or anyone else here at RIM on the sales side. We're happy to help. And hopefully this has helped you learn a little bit more about the Supreme Court ruling and some of the issues out there on the roads that, like I said, I wasn't even aware of some of these, and now we are. So
Perfect.
I want to thank you for your time. Thanks to Ronni.
Thank
Thanks
you.
to Kristy.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks,
And
Mike,
thanks
for
to
having
Alex
us.
for getting us on the air. We appreciate you. And we'll talk to you next time, and we'll find out what's going on. I'm sure we'll have more tariff stuff going forward as the president has promised that. So we'll see what next month brings, and we'll talk to you then on Logistically Speaking. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks.